despite all the dark and disturbing and even violent images that one is often barraged with while experiencing the Battle Angel Alita universe, whether that be the comic verse or the cinematic universe, one of the reasons many of the fans love following this story is because of the high amount of empathy that is found in this story. This story touches us in ways that a lot of other science fiction adventures do not, in the sense that it is a very touching story despite all of its violence. And although much of that is focused around the main character of Alita, and although Dr. Ido plays only a supporting character to the story, one of the reasons this touching empathy remains is because of the high amount of love and care that Dr. Ido brings to the story. And because of that, despite being a supportive character, many of the fans follow and like this story due to the contributions that characters such as Dr. Ido brings in. And whether that love is through a paternal love, a platonic love, or even a romantic love, it is this relationship that he has with many of the other characters and the love he portrays that gives a lot of warmth and hope to a lot of the readers. You could think of it as a ray of light that shines and breaks through all of this darkness and depression to give all of the readers or all of the viewers a hope that there may be something better in the future. And so what's up, people, and welcome to another Alita Battle Angel / GUNNM video. And so today I would like to talk about Dr. Ido's love, whether that be in the cinematic universe or the comic verse. And these relationships, once again, do bring a sense of empathy and warmth to a otherwise very dark and depressing story. And it also not only helps build the story and the world, but it also helps portray and develop the character who is Dr. Ido. The Dr. Ido that we see in the beginning of the story, as well as the one that progressively changes as we go along, is due to the relationships that he has with many of these characters. And so these characters become an important factor for the development of a very important character named Dr. Ido. And if you look at both the cinematic universe and the comic verse, I would say that there are basically around 5 characters who share the love to and from Dr. Ido. And these characters are Carol, Chiren, Dr. Ido's daughter Alita, the main character Alita, and of course, Cana. And each one of these characters do contribute in one way or another to not only bringing warmth to the story, but also helping the Doctor develop to the character that he will be in the future. And so today I would like to talk about each one of these characters and each one of these relationships. Now before I begin, I would like to give my default spoiler alert. So if you haven't watched the movie or haven't read the comic, I'm not sure why you're actually here, but if you want to be spoiled, that is fine. But I will be going over many of the characters in both the cinematic universe as well as the comic verse, and going over the relationships that are in these stories. So if you have not read the story or the comic of Battle Angel Alita, I would say to the very end of Last Order, if you don't want to be spoiled by anything, and at least to the end of the original series if you don't want to be spoiled by a majority of these things. But yeah, if you haven't, then I may suggest that you stop this video if you don't want to be spoiled. Also, if you haven't watched the movie, and possibly the anime, then you may want to go do that to understand the different love that Dr. Ido receives in the cinematic universe as compared to the comic verse. But in any case, yeah, if you don't mind being spoiled, yeah, please join us. And if you have experienced all of these mediums, then yeah, there's nothing to spoil. So as always, that is my spoiler alert. And as always, please watch at your discretion. Now, in both the comic verse and the cinematic universe, Dr. Ido has the unique role of being the first character that we interact with. He is the first to come out to discover Alita, and even before the main character, we start getting some understanding of this particular person. And it is through his actions of resurrecting Alita that we start understanding that this is a very kind-hearted and capable gentleman. But as we continue on in the story, we find that Dr. Ido is somewhat a mysterious person, in a sense that although he is very kind, as we start learning about the small amount of past that we know of, we start finding that he may be a little bit of an anomaly in the sense that he is a citizen or a past citizen of Zalem. And as we get to know Zalem, we realize that the citizens of Zalem are not particularly kind or gentle to the soul. And so we wonder, as we keep on going, where Dr. Ido got his personality. And what's interesting is, of the two mediums, although the movie has been shorter in the duration of story told, it actually gave more information than the entire comic series in how Dr. Ido's life was up in Zalem. In the case of the comic, we still have no information with regards to what Dr. Ido was like in Zalem, and although we know that in both cases he was exiled, unlike the movie, we really don't know why Dr. Ido was exiled from Zalem in the comic. And so this gives a little bit of a mystery to wonder why this particular gentleman was so kind-hearted, considering his background was from a city that particularly didn't raise kind people. However, in both cases, you start getting some idea of why he started doing the actions that he did to try to save Alita, based upon some of the previous relationships that he had with other people. And in the cinematic universe, of course, that is his family of Chiren and his daughter Alita. And of course, in the comic, it is his relationship with Carol. Now, although the stories of the cinematic universe and the comic verse are different, they do result in a very similar personality for Dr. Ido, in that he becomes a very down, dark, and empty sort of person. And in the cinematic universe, we understand this because of the fact of a number of incidents that happen one right after the other. And the first is, of course, the exile of the entire family of Dr. Ido, because of the genetic defect that his daughter has. And that by itself is something that Dr. Ido takes as a responsibility, and that somewhat brings him down. What keeps him going is that Alita, his daughter, is a very positive sort of person. And although the family was sent to Iron City, you find out from the Iron City novel that Alita took the entire thing most positive of the entire family. She actually took it as an adventure, whereas, of course, Chiren took it as a downgrade, and Dr. Ido took it as a responsibility. And so you could think of Alita's love as something that somehow saved both Chiren and Dr. Ido to give them a feeling of hope towards living in Iron City. Of course, this gets completely turned around during the death of Alita. And of course, that is what eventually destroys the relationship between Dr. Ido and Chiren. However, although this is speculation since the movie didn't say anything about it, there must have been something that sparked the warm relationship between Chiren and Dr. Ido up in Zalem. And one thing I really liked about the character of Chiren in the movie, which did not happen in the anime, is the warm personality that Chiren brought out at the very end. And of course, Chiren is a character that only comes out in the anime and the movie and is not canon in the main story. And what I do like is the direction that Robert Rodriguez took, as well as the fine acting brought out by Jennifer Connelly, who had to play a cold-hearted person who was hiding a very warm heart somewhere underneath. And it took the character of the main character, Alita, not the daughter, to bring back that warm feeling to Chiren that you now understand was probably there when Chiren started having a relationship with Dr. Ido that eventually ended up in their marriage. And so that gave you some idea of the fact that Chiren did love Dr. Ido. And unfortunately, due to circumstances that got kind of hidden by the cold heart that she eventually got due to the unfortunate circumstances, but that love to Dr. Ido and, of course, to her daughter, Alita, still existed. And so in the beginning, although she was quite angry at Dr. Ido for taking another person in and pretending that that was their daughter, eventually she even accepted her kind feelings, Alita's kind feelings, and that was the one redemption that helped her come back and gain her heart. And so both Chiren and Alita were important people to Dr. Dyson Ido, and you could understand that when he lost both of these people, it left him as an empty shell sort of person who was longing for the love that he experienced in the past. Now, in contrast, Dr. Daisuke Ido in the comic is, of course, never married. And in the beginning, you're not really sure what sort of person he is. When you see the comic, he seems like somewhat a happy going person, but it is true that he becomes overly fascinated by Alita in the comic, to the point that a lot of readers have stated that he looked kind of creepy in the over control that he was trying to have over Alita. Now, of course, Alita resisted and tells Dr. Ido that her life is for her to decide. And of course, eventually Dr. Ido agrees. But of course, in that situation, you start understanding why Dr. Daisuke Ido is so overly compulsive of trying to take care of Alita because of the experiences that he had with Carol. Now, from that side story of A Holy Night, although we don't know too much about Dr. Daisuke Ido and what happened to him, from what we see in the beginning of that side story, we do see that Dr. Daisuke Ido is in a very depressive state. And that may be due to whatever reason he was exiled. The fact that he was exiled may have left him as an empty sort of person. And it is through him kind of flowing through his life with absolutely no goal that he eventually meets Carol. And Carol is this one young lady who has a very similar sort of beginning as Alita, in the sense that she has no real memory. But this goes one step further in that at least Alita had the basic principles of how to stay alive. I mean, communication was okay, and she knew the basics of taking care of herself, and of course, she had her Panzerkunst, so there was nobody who could take her down. But in the case of Carol, even the basics were not there, and she could not really even communicate to anybody. And of course, the situation that Daisuke Ido found Carol was when that gigantic monstrosity of a robot was chasing her and attacking her. And as a kind-hearted person, combined with his experience as a hunter-warrior, he took on that robot to save Carol. And of course, that started the relationship between Carol and Ido. And during this relationship, we get to learn many things about Carol. First, she is a very free spirit and a very bright individual. And during a dark time of Dr. Ido's life, she is the one that brings warmth and empathy and happiness to him. Second, she is very caring of Dr. Ido and seems to really appreciate his friendship and his love. And third, despite the fact that she does not have a tremendous amount of experience in life, she seems to learn at an extremely rapid pace. Not only within a year does she get to learn the language of communication, but somewhere along the way, even in the first try, she is able to beat Ganzu at a game of chess, something that he took pride in as being an expert at. And so Carol becomes this very special person to Dr. Ido. And during this time, Dr. Ido is not yet a cyber surgeon. He hasn't set himself up as that. And so, considering the fact that he had no purpose, Carol and Ganzu become his family. And it is at this time that irony starts. And of course, while Dr. Ido's away, Carol gets once again attacked by that one giant robot and gets kidnapped again. And it is at this time that we finally understand the origins of Carol. One of the things at this time, of course, is Dr. Ido has not set up his cyber surgery shop yet because of the fact that he thought that cyber surgery was too beneath him. It was a blasphemy to actually heal somebody by using robotic limbs. He thought that it was better to use genetics because it was a lot more natural and a lot more holistic, and so he thought that that was the humane thing to do, and he could not bring himself to becoming a cyber surgeon. And what he finds out is that Carol was actually a cloned individual that was created by a doctor that Dr. Ido very much respected for a client who was ailing in her body. And so they created Carol for the purpose of eventually killing her and then transferring that body to that client. And currently that client's brain was residing in that giant monstrosity of a robot. And so when Dr. Ido goes to rescue Carol, when he sees that the giant robot is once again chasing her, he goes and attacks and destroys that robot, or takes it down at least. And it is at that time that you realize the irony in that the operation has already been done, and the person in Carol's body is no longer Carol. So then, if that person's brain was temporarily in the body of the robot, then of course Dr. Ido immediately asks, who is in the robot now? And of course you find out that it's Carol. And at that time it goes into a little bit of a conflict, and it results in the laboratory of that respected doctor to go up in flames. And the client who took Carol's body gets burnt alive. And Dr. Ido would have been killed as well had it not been for Carol, who rescues him. But of course, with her body gone and nowhere else to go, she leaves Dr. Ido outside in safety and goes back into the burning building to commit suicide. And it is at that point that Dr. Ido decides that he will become a cyber surgeon. And so in both cases of Dr. Dyson Ido as well as Dr. Daisuke Ido, it is this loss, this very tragic and sad loss, that leaves him in this empty state. And I have this feeling that it is because of this past loss that Dr. Idos both get attracted to Alita when they find her in the junkyard. In that you could tell, at least for Dr. Dyson Ido, that he immediately recognized her as a surrogate daughter because of the fact that when he brought her back, he immediately brought up her daughter's old body to give to Alita. And so my feeling is through the discovery of Alita, both Dr. Idos felt that they were able to find someone who they possibly can have another relationship with. And because of the fact that Alita was such a positive sort of personality and a strong individual, it turned out to be a very strong relationship. And I feel that this is important because not only was Dr. Ido very important for the growth of Alita, but Alita was in turn also important for the growth of Dr. Ido. He had to overcome his guilt of feeling that he was at fault for the loss of someone he loved, and because of that, he became extremely overly protective of Alita. Through the positive as well as the conflicting relationship that Alita had with Dr. Ido, it gave Dr. Ido the ability to bring balance back to his persona and his life. And because this Alita was so strong, he understood that there was nothing really that he could do to protect Alita, and because of that, he was able to give Alita the freedom that she greatly desired. And through that, this Alita and Dr. Idos were able to have a very strong and loving relationship. And it is because of the need by both parties to have that relationship that I feel that this loving relationship between the main character of Alita and Dr. Ido was able to succeed. And since, as a viewer or a reader, we are there to witness and experience all of this relationship between Dr. Ido and Alita, that we take heart in their relationship and we ourselves become extremely close to these two characters. And it is because of that later, when there is once again a traumatic sort of situation, and this time Dr. Ido loses his memory, and Alita eventually realizes that if Dr. Ido regains his memory, it may become so traumatic to him that it may cost him his life, that Alita decides to act as if she is a stranger to Dr. Ido. And during that time, her broken heart and her anguish is something that the readers of the comic took seriously to heart. And we, as a reader and a fan of this character, shared in the sadness that she experienced. Now, luckily for Dr. Ido, although this was a very difficult time for him, it wasn't one without happiness. And one of the reasons he had happiness is because of a love that he received from another character. And this character was named Cana. Now, Cana was the nurse for the medical clinic that Dr. Ido had in the Badlands after he lost his memory. And right from the point where we are introduced to the character, we realize that this character is very close and caring of Dr. Ido. So much so that when Alita comes to meet Dr. Ido, which may potentially bring his memory back and threaten him, it is Cana who tries to take Alita out. And considering the fact that Alita is a Panzerkunst mercenary, it is pretty impressive that Cana went toe-to-toe with Alita. Literally. In that Cana, as we find out, is a capoeira expert, and she uses that martial arts freely to defend against the person she cares for, which is, of course, Dr. Ido. And in the beginning, because we are so close to Alita, that we start getting a little bit annoyed with Cana. But eventually, we realize that it is because of Cana's caring that Dr. Ido somehow gets over that situation in the Badlands and is able to settle down happily out in his new clinic. And of course, since this is Battle Angel Alita, which is a very dark and depressing story, it is also Cana who somehow helps Dr. Ido when the entire neighboring villagers come to attack him, thinking, for whatever reason, that he is Destinova. Mostly because of the fact that they find out that he is from Zalem and that he is a doctor. They think that he is Destinova hiding out in the Badlands. And since many of the people had such traumatic experiences with Destinova, they decide to take their revenge out on Dr. Ido. And it is at this time that we do find out why Cana is so close to Dr. Ido. As we find out, it is Cana who was a nurse for Destinova. And during that time, she agreed to help perform some of the most hideous experiments on people. And it is because of her fear that Dr. Nova will do hideous experiments on her if she refused, that she reluctantly went on. And somehow she was able to escape from the clinic. And when she met Dr. Ido and saw his kind personality, it gave her a feeling of solace from the guilt and darkness that she received under Destinova. And it is at this time, when Dr. Ido's life is at danger, when everybody comes to attack his clinic, that it is Cana who basically risks her life to protect Dr. Ido. And once again, since this is Battle Angel Alita, a very strong and dark story, yes, Cana does give the ultimate sacrifice to protect Dr. Ido. And because, again, this is a story that delves into karma, Cana loses her life through the hands of one of the victims that Cana helped assist Destinova perform the hideous experiments on. And so Cana's last thoughts are that karma has come back to bring justice to her. But at that point, I don't think she cared because of the fact that she was relieved that Dr. Ido was safe. And of course, at that time, it is probably the first time Dr. Ido realizes just how much Cana cared about him. And when Dr. Ido realizes what has happened to his memory, although there is a tremendous amount of fear that overcomes him when he realizes that getting his memory back may be an extremely traumatic situation, he decides to do so because of the courage that he saw from Cana and the self-sacrifice that she gave for his life, that he thought that it would be an extreme insult to her if he did not move forward as she had hoped. And because of that, he is able to grow once more as a person and come back to being the strong doctor that everybody hoped he would be. And so as we see, there are many people who value and get great solace in the love that Dr. Ido gives. Since he is a person of such caring and kindness, many people come close to him because it is something that is very unusual in this dark and depressing story. And readers probably also get close to him for that very same reason. And in return, Dr. Ido receives the love from each one of these individuals. And because this is a tragic story, it does break his heart multiple times. But through each one of these relationships, I feel that Dr. Ido has grown and become the person that he is later. Now, of course, at this point, Dr. Ido is a much happier person because he eventually does come back to meet with Alita, and also comes to share his life with another person who I would say may be very close to him, but I would call him a bromance rather than a romance, and that is, of course, Figure 4. And so when he does see Alita get together with Figure 4 to go back to Earth to live happily, Dr. Ido does get peace and finally finds happiness. Or at least, I would like to think so. But the interesting thing is, of course, at the end of Last Order, Dr. Ido does look back out into space and he realizes that currently Alita is off into space, potentially going to Mars, and of course that makes him worried as her guardian. And so my feeling is that eventually in the latter parts of Mars Chronicle, we will see Dr. Ido again. And hopefully the readers of the comic, and possibly even the viewers of the cinematic universe, will have the joy of seeing the reunion of these two characters. And hopefully it is through Dr. Ido's love once more that Alita will be able to overcome whatever obstacles that will come up in the latter parts of Mars Chronicle. But in any case, these are the characters who I found to be very fascinating because of their relationship with Dr. Ido, and thus I did want to make this video. So thank you very much for following this video. And if you have watched the movie and or read the comic, how do you feel about the characters who have influenced Dr. Ido? And do you feel that this influence is similar to the way I've perceived it, or do you feel differently? And as always, I would appreciate your comments because your comments are always so informative. And so I will continue with more Battle Angel Alita, Alita Battle Angel GUNNM videos in the future, and at that time, I hope you join us. And thank you very much, and until the next video, Jaya, nice day everyone.